Good morning, everyone. Would like to welcome you to this next installment of budget development meetings. If we could have the roll called, please, Connie.
Bates.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Paulson. Satterfield.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Dahlquist.
Here. All right, we've got one agenda item, but it of course is a very long one. And so we'll start out with staff has a report with where we're at currently with the FY 2027 budget.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are happy to be here in front of you. This budget represents a lot of work on behalf of all the department heads, their staff, the two people that sit beside me, and we are ready to have some meaningful discussions with you about this and hopefully get some answers. For me, it's kind of been like the kiss on a first date, right? A little bit awkward because everything's brand new, but incredible. And we are in such a good spot. We have,
So awesome. I can have some weird dreams.
Yeah,
we are pretty much presenting to you a balanced budget. We have our issue in highway, streets, and roads, and we have general fund to 47,000, which is something that in December or January I would have told you was impossible. This budget includes a funded change in our benefits. It includes, I think, a very reasonable and good increase for our employees. It does not include everything or all of the needs, as you have heard in the department presentations, that they need. And I do have that list with me. It does represent that we would be statutorily in compliance, which is very important. It does represent 3% increase from the prior year's budget, which was the highest budget that we have ever had, and that's how the statute reads. It also does include 1% of foregone. And I think if we need to discuss that in more detail, we can, but you guys need to know that that's how this budget is made up, with that 1% foregone. It does include use of reserves. The biggest one being WPC. The second biggest one was, there was another project. There were some funds that we looked at and made a decision with, like the wellness and the education, that their reserves were sufficient to rely on this year to draw those down. They had maybe excess. So we used in those two funds their reserves in whole to draw those down. And we can go into detail in all of that. If you look at, let's go to this page, this one right here. You can see the list, go to the top. Nope, scroll down. It's where they see, scroll, no, up. I'm sorry, scroll up. There we go. This is your list of each fund and the differences. And those two that I've mentioned are where the differences are, the 47 in general fund and the 1.3 in the street fund. So what we have before you is a proposed budget of 185 million, which is very similar to the budgets in the past, and actually, as proposed, does keep things, what's the word I want to use?
a level funded.
As
or-
is, right? I mean, if this budget was passed today, we would be going on as is, as the things are today. All right. We have detailed the planned use of available fund balance. We've detailed our general fund and the list of reserves that we're using. And I went over the detail of those fund balances. I don't know how you want to start the discussion or where you want to go from here. But I would like it to be a discussion rather than a presentation, and hopefully by the end of this discussion, we can have made some decisions, whether we go forward as is or if we're making changes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the discussion today will be that when we had the department heads present, there were a lot of items that weren't in the underlying budget, just needs that they have that aren't incorporated in yet. So
Would you like me to give you a reminder of those?
I think that would be good, because
Okay.
you kept a good list.
So the clerk went off first and they mentioned the need for an updated records management program. And I don't disagree or agree with any of these. I think that they're all very much seen by the department head as something that is needed. HR mentioned a comp study. And I think during that discussion, we talked about including in that comp study workload and staffing. And I think that that would be probably increase the cost of that comp study, but would be imperative into some of the decisions you guys have been talking about. Finance has been looking at a payroll system.
Yeah, and Rich, we have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Councilwoman Satterfield.
So on the two things that you just mentioned, the updated management program and the comp study, do we know yet what we're thinking on average of that, what that would cost?
I think the soft numbers were, yeah, I don't know if I dare say. I think on the management system, I'm remembering 40K. No.
Just so we have something, no?
Oh, 180, I'm way off on that one.
Okay,
I think the comp study was in the 100,000 as well.
okay.
But I don't remember hard numbers on these.
I have a question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if these requests are requests for the first time or requests for a second or third time? So are there some items that have been requested for the last 3 years and we haven't funded them? Or this is the first time we're hearing about it?
So I can give you my best information, and if a department head wants to chime in, that might be best, because I'm new and
me
I
too.
don't know. I think the electronic dock system has been on the radar for a while. I think the comp study just needs to be reviewed and was maybe brought up as a new review this time. Does that make sense? We've had one, but it's old.
Yeah, got it. Yep.
So, and I think they just started talking about renewing that.
Back in 2014, I had written down, was our last compensation study.
Yeah.
So Rich, the items you're bringing up, those are items that are not in this budget, they're
That is correct.
okay.
These are not in the budget. The budget maintains what we are doing right now. The payroll system, we've looked at several systems. They've been looking at that for quite some time. We've had several vendors look at the complexity of our compensation and actually walk away. So if we found something that really worked, we would hope that we would be able to get some support for that. But we're still looking. Something we need to do. Police brought up radios, and I think their price tag was 1.6 million, and he has some reserve in 78, and he had some ideas of how to increase that reserve to help cover that cost.
And there were also some grant sources that Chief Shy told me about
Right.
yesterday that could help offset there. So
Right.
both reserves and possible grant sources.
He had mentioned a fence in the back. Maybe that's where I'm remembering the 40K. I do think that was the price tag on that. and the need for a garage. I think there were some specific equipment that he wanted garaged. Animal control went after, and they mentioned a crematory. That is actually something that might be able to happen within this budget year, but it was mentioned. So,
Was there a cost to that?
yeah, 100 and,
125.
yeah, that's
Like
right. I was gonna say 128,
125,000.
but, mhm. Fire mentioned a vehicle for 80K, recliners for 22, a Station 3 roof. There was not a number put to that. And then they did mention that was coming up a pumper truck and updates to SCADA, which I think the SCADA system is something that we have to do. It's how they, can't remember totally what that software does, but, oh yeah, it's their masks, right? Yeah. So that'll be something that we'll have to look at. GIS wanted additional staff. Fleet is looking at a market rate study. That's probably something that will happen this year. And then we talked about a motor pool, but that was initial stages, and we don't have hard numbers on what it would take to make that work. There were a few things mentioned, like a key box. And there's a decision there as well, because I think there's a desire to either go electric or hybrid. And there are some benefits to that, but they're also more expensive to
Yeah, and
maintain.
the key box system, what I remember talking to Tom, I think it was 50,000. And that's not just a key box, that's a whole electronic system
System.
where you reserve a vehicle and there's not
It's
a
a
lot of human intervention, and you go put in a code and go get your key.
It's a check. It's a
and-
checkout.
Yes, and what we talked about, hybrid versus electric vehicles. The electric vehicles apparently don't withstand being out in the elements in the winter, and maybe technology is getting better, but there was a little bit of an issue with those being out in the elements all winter, that's not good for them. The charging stations weren't a big deal from what I recall, but it's just not being stored inside. And so, like, it's staff recommendation, if you will, is like hybrid is a good kind of compromise there. Council can go either way, but that's the staff recommendation, is go for the hybrid because of those reasons I told you about. And there is a reserve as well. Like Fleet has a good reserve that's a little bit oversubscribed. They need 90 days worth of reserve in there, which I believe was 800,000. But there's an excess in there. I think there's 1.4 million. And so we talked about that difference between the 800,000 and the 1.4 million being possible fleet, that could help fund the motor pool, or if there's more fleet needs in other departments. So just FYI as a background.
We do have that shortage in highway, streets, and roads. And in my mind, I'm not trying to dismiss anyone's request, but that's the juicy news of the budget. Hopefully, the legislature does address that, but we do have to deal with it this year. I did want to clear up a couple of comments, if I could, that had to do with the water department. There was some interest that was budgeted there, and we changed that. All of the interest right now, and has been, going to the general fund. It's something we need to work on. It's something we've looked at. We're aware of what we want to do. But I wanted you to know that that was not budgeted there. It's going to the general fund. There was also a question on the Palisade water rights. In the past, those have been split or used in different ways, and those have been budgeted in full in the water department, which is where generally accepted accounting principles would put them. That's where they should be. So I wanted to make sure that those two things, those two questions that had come up were clarified with you, with the water department.
And that was 4 million worth of interest, wasn't
That's
it?
the total, that is correct. And we're gonna work toward allocating that to the fund balances as they, right? The percentage of the fund balance that earns that interest. That's what we need to work toward. Yeah.
So just to be clear, what was happening before with the interest?
It's, well, it's happening before and it's happening now. All of that is being budgeted in the general fund.
And is that, and you said that's generally accepted accounting principles, even though it's an enterprise fund, it goes back to the general,
Well, no, when I said the general accepted accounting principle comment, I was talking about the water rights.
oh, okay,
We own water rights in Palisades Reservoir.
yeah,
And and if we get revenue, this year is totally different, but that's a rabbit hole. So we usually rent those out or allow people to buy the use of those for the year, rent them or whatever, and we get revenue from them. It, in the past, has been used in different funds, and it belongs in the water fund.
okay. And is that where it's going now?
That is where it's going now.
Okay,
The interest, and we're okay doing what we did with interest, but a better way would be to allocate that interest to the reserve that has earned it,
okay, instead of the general fund,
right?
that makes sense, okay.
And I just wanted to clarify that, because it came up
So that would
in the
stay,
water presentation.
and so that would stay in the water fund? The interest would revert back
Yep,
to
yep.
the water fund reserves.
So, and that's the case for every fund, not just
Okay.
specific to water. Every fund would get some kind of interest entry, because every fund has a balance.
Right. Is that is that a rule for enterprise funds? That any interest created reverts back to, is it because, no, it's not particular to enterprise
It's
funds?
just, it would be just good accounting.
Okay,
And Jared the city attorney has taken a look at it. He doesn't, it is an accounting gap or best practice, but our legal has looked at that and doesn't see an issue with how that's happening now with that interest going into the general fund, just FYI.
okay,
And Rich, just to be clear, so like if today we were to say all interest earned is gonna go back to the fund, basically it came from, that would be about a $4 million hit to the general fund?
3.
3.
The interest is, in total, is
Is 4.
$4 million.
okay.
So, yes. Yeah, that's right. So it's a big deal, and we need to tackle it.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure, I remember that coming up in water, and I wanted to make sure that it was clear and that you don't feel misled. Cemetery, they need future land. Parks, mentioned a mower for $75K, trail maintenance for $50K, and a new position to help with urban forestry.
Was
Golf.
that urban forestry or was that trails? I'm kind of remembering it as
I
a
think it was
trails maintenance,
Same,
both.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
What was the price tag on that?
There wasn't
Okay.
a price tag mentioned, but you're usually looking at their wage plus a 30% tag on for wage-related expenses. So depending on where you put that on the step and grade, where you put a position like that on the step and grade, but they did not mention,
Okay. Maybe you were
No,
just
go
about to
ahead.
say this, but I know that there was concern in Parks and Rec about wages, for entry-level wages to keep folks mowing and doing all that kind of maintenance. And it's a concern of mine too, so I just wanted to make sure that,
I think they've taken a big step towards that. Oh,
has
thanks
that
for
already
popping up
happened,
there.
or is that part of this budget, your request?
So we built into the budget a 10% increase to the recreation divisions.
Okay.
And a 20% increase to the parks and cemetery seasonal staffing.
Okay, so
That's built in.
That's built in. So that's already
Yep.
what we're seeing in this budget that we're hearing today. Or,
I
yeah.
believe the full-time position with benefits was about 105.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a little more background on those positions. We have an internal process that human resources way before this point in the budget. All the department heads are invited to submit an application or whatever to add a staff member to their complement. And there's an internal process where human resources and myself go through all of those. So it's not like I just want to add someone. There's some work with it and some justification. And from what I recall, like, I think we had like 4 submitted, and we pared it down to just this one, the urban forestry trails person. So just want to give you that background. Like internally, there's our scrubbing and screening process, and we narrowed it down to, okay, this one and only additional position will come forward to you.
In that department or overall?
Overall, the
Oh,
whole city,
okay.
there's only one that made it through that cut
Okay.
that for you to see.
Thank you.
They mentioned irrigation on the golf courses. I think that was a multi-million-dollar project. They could split up like 9 holes and 9 holes, half and half. The Fort Hall replica, they mentioned a $30K repair for the roof. The outdoor rec center wanted a UTV. Oh, did I? For $30K. And a trailhead. It was phase 2 for a trailhead of $70K. Team sports, you guys had a discussion about paving NOP parking lot, which would be about $204K. Lots of,
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of Hellawell, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Thinking
okay.
of a different park.
they mentioned lighting the second and third fields. They also mentioned something about the pokey tennis courts, and I didn't get the detail on that, so, but I wanted to mention it just in case, so they didn't think it fell through the cracks. Ross Park mentioned a filtration system for $134K and a pool cover for $27. And the rec center mentioned the need for more parking. That was the list that I made. And again, I know I'm representing department heads, but please, if we need to get, they're here, so if you want detail, let's ask them, because I might not have remembered correctly. I'm trying to do my best.
Rich,
And
do
I
we
think
have,
those are legitimate. I'm sorry, go ahead.
do we have a total of the wish list?
I did not total it. We could quick run that. So, I apologize.
Oh, no worries.
I know a lot of them come without prices, though. I don't know if everyone submitted pricing.
I think probably over 50%, they had a good
Okay.
idea. I think they do, I'm impressed, the department heads do their math. And I think most of them do have an idea. I mean, we're not gonna, until we're serious about spending money, we really don't wanna go out to bid and be firm, because then people who are bidding, I mean, they'll get tired of us doing that and then not following through, right?
Yeah.
So our best estimate is probably the best way to go until we're ready. There were some possibilities to change. This is probably the thing that would light people's hair on fire, but if we want to talk about those, we can. Always reorganization. You can look at things like that. In HR, and I don't want to go too far down with Jay not being here, but you could look at benefits and what we offer, those could change greatly. You could look at, for example, a high deductible HSA or something like that. We could hold off hiring. And I think in the past, that's been a huge benefit to balancing the budget or having department heads or giving the, or department heads having the ability to make budget. You had asked, or someone had asked what salary savings is so far. And this year, so far, it's about 1.5 million. That's a significant number. So, you could change your service availability, like the schedules that we keep. And that would, in a department. You could look at fees. It would help. I don't think that that's something that solves, but I think anything that helps. Holding off hiring, of course, that's the salary savings. When it comes to, I really liked the comment that you guys made. Sorry. Is there anything, and I think it was Ann, is there anything that would help that isn't an FTE? That is a pretty important way to think of things. And I wrote down training, tools, AI, interns, or outsource. And I think we've talked a little bit about that. I have wondered if we shouldn't at least take the first step in our interest allocation and give that to highway, streets, and roads, their portion. And that might be how we have to approach a $3 million problem, is over 2 or 3 years. And that'd be a pretty big chunk of it, so.
A $3 million problem, meaning?
Well, maybe I shouldn't call it a problem, a $3 million adjustment in our general fund, if we allocate interest.
Oh, I see.
But we could do that in highway, streets, and roads, and that would help there. But then we have to make that up in the general fund.
Rich, do you know specifically how much that would be for streets this year?
I think it was 700.
Yeah.
I think it was 700,000. Here, let me, in fact, because I know they have about 8. Oh, no, that's not right. Trying to get my fingers to work. And it might be a little bit less than that. Might be closer to 4 or 5, but it would be a step that we should make. I think they have about 8 million in their fund balance that they'd be earning on.
Do any of the departments that have made these requests have money in Fund 78 or in their own like reserve
Yeah, in fact, we heard from,
that they would be willing to say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why don't we, can we just take it out of the reserves? Am I missing something there that they couldn't just decide or recommend that that's where that money comes from?
I think that's always on their mind, and they're always willing, and that's why they have it, you bet. In fact, police mentioned it, right? They would use that towards their radios. And the crematorium, that would be the plan there, is to use their Fund 78 for animal services to go towards the crematorium.
So will we be able today, just a quick, like, for example, we could look really quickly to see what the fund balance is for animal services.
They have
Right,
74,000.
Okay, you have it right there.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
So the department, okay, so is that something that the department, maybe you want to come up and discuss the animal services?
Yeah.
Is that something that they're willing to?
Liam has told me, yes,
Oh, okay.
that he's willing to use that fund balance toward it.
Okay. So if we took all of the, it's an uncomfortable place to be, of course, but that's what we signed up for. If we took all of the fund balances of all of the departments that have made these requests, and like from animal services, a crematorium is 125K, they have 75K, that leaves 50,000 left to try and meet their goal with purchasing that. Do we have that kind of math for all of these departments? So if we've got Parks and Rec, what their reserve is, how they would like to prioritize using that money. Is it up to us to then permit them to use that reserve or mandate that they do if they want to do this? Or how does
That's
that
right.
work?
This is the uncomfortable discussion and the rubber meets the road. You guys, that is up to you. Yes.
Okay, so if I'm looking at the Parks and Rec asks, then my question would be, how much is in your reserves? Do you want to use any of your reserve money to do this? And if you, it is, so it's, if I'm trying to help everybody get what they want here,
Right. So I can tell you,
okay,
the request for parks, and again, Ann, if I misspeak, let me get back to that sheet.
I can speak in general pretty quick.
Mower
here.
75 would be in the general fund, and they don't have any Fund 78 funds. The general fund has some general fund reserves, and you would have to agree that that's how you want to allocate that and use it.
So, the mayor and I have been talking about different options. All of the department heads are absolutely looking for exactly what you're talking about. Different avenues, different grants, different ways we can find money for these projects. So the RC lawnmower that we had talked about on our wish list is about $75,000. I talked to the mayor, there's some excess money off the tree grant that comes back to the city. That's the type of funding I would like to use in the Parks Department for that. I would need to amend that to bring that to you and ask for authority to spend that money for that project. It's also above the $50,000 threshold, the lawnmower is, so I would be having that conversation with you.
okay.
The position, for example, that's not something I would want to take out of reserves because that's an every year cost. Same with the $50,000 for trails maintenance. That's, you know, if we do it one time, it doesn't really solve our deferred maintenance issue. But yes, the other issues you're talking about, the one-time expenditures, those are absolutely something that I could be managing, you know, talking with Rich about our reserves and saying, is this the right time to do that? But we are trying to look at our deferred maintenance and say, do we wait until it breaks and then it's an emergency to fix, or can we start to bite those off ahead of time? And we've just been in a situation where we haven't always had the reserves to do that.
Okay.
Well,
So I'm happy to approve spending grant extra on a mower. So I'm just trying to understand, like, what can I take out of this picture or take out of these requests that really is just a matter of a department head coming before us and asking for a budget amendment to spend money that's really already there, and it's likely that we'll approve it. I guess that's the list I'm trying to get down to, like,
Yep. And, you know, I could tell you what those one-time items are, and I'd say, take those off the list right now and we'll keep working at it. But there are some of those things that I just can't defer much longer, you know what I mean? And I think every department head here would be able to provide you that list. We can do without this right now, and we can, you know, beg and plead back and forth for different things. So, the RC lawnmower, take that off the list. I think we have some funding for that.
okay. So for you, Ann, and I think I would like to hear from all the department heads that were on this list here. The urban forestry position and the trails maintenance, are those, that sounds to me like those are your priorities. Is that true?
That is my priority. The replica $30,000 request, I think I can handle that with some grants and some buy-in between the society and us. So the position and the trails would be my biggest ask for the year. And then we could take a look at, the next things on my list would be probably at Ross Park, that filtration system. We'd have to take a peek at that and see.
Okay.
But I could always come back later and ask for reserves if I felt like it was an emergency.
Yeah, question down here.
I'd like to know what in this list of things are the most detrimental. So the ventilation for the firefighters, I believe, is pretty high on the detrimental list because they got to be able to breathe when they go into fires. But like Ann said, the mower can probably come off the list. Now, looking at this list and listening to this, none of these things are accounted for in the budget currently. So if we're going to fund those two positions that Ann just mentioned, we're going to have to remove something out of the budget in order to meet that request.
Right. And it's one position, by the way.
Also, it's one position. Okay. So something's going to have to be cut out of the budget. Someone's going to lose something somewhere. And I would rather it be from that department that's making the request than cut from another department to support another department. And so I'd like to see this from a more broad view to be able to delineate exactly what to possibly cut versus just looking at these whole numbers, if that makes sense.
We can dive down if you want to, and if Anne's willing to be our example. But what you're saying, what I think you're saying is you would, if you're going to hold the departments as silos, you would approve a budget like the budget that's presented to you. And then Anne would have to go through the process of getting the position approved, which there's a process, and making it fit within that budget. That's what you're saying.
Yes. So the conversation is almost convoluted to a degree where we're discussing it as silos, but then we're discussing it as a whole also. And so we have to decide which way we're going to go about funding each one of these departments. Are we going to fund it as itself, as one department themselves, or are we going to all inclusively take money from the general fund or from whatever allocation and put it towards and divvy it out however we see?
Well, just to pipe in a bit, like taking it more from a global perspective, I think there's, for example, positions in other departments that I've seen that they've been vacant for quite some time. And not to single, but looking at Parks and Rec, I do really feel that there's a staffing issue there. And so council has to decide this, but I would like advocate for a more global view, to where I think there's some excess elsewhere that department directors and myself could sit down and figure out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that departmentally there are needs, especially in Parks and Rec. I do recognize that there is a staffing issue. But a lot of the work and a lot of the reserves that have been set aside were per fund, per department, and a lot of it has been set aside for specific uses. And so that's kind of where I lean to that other side of getting away from that holistic global view. It'd be a shame to say police can't continue to save for body cams and radios because parks needs staffing. But because there's, like I said, there's those things that are more detrimental than certain others. And so, but that's just my
Yeah,
perspective.
okay. Any other thoughts there? Yes.
Couple things. One, I think we need to step back a little bit and address the street issue first, because what we decide to do there changes how we approach the general fund. If we're going to take $400,000 or $500,000 in interest which I would support to try and help start bridging this shortfall. Rich likes that word instead of deficit. Shortfall in the street fund, then that's $400,000 or $500,000 in the general fund we've got to address. So I think we first kind of need to decide how we're going to approach the street fund, and then we should start looking at the general fund and what we're going to do there. And I just my feeling towards the budget in general, I do think that we've got to look at it globally, and not just siloed, I guess is the term. But, Rich, at the very beginning, you said this is a as-is budget. And I'll just be very frank. I think that's maybe part of the problem. I think if we were even to just look at this politically, we have a new mayor, and I think part of the reason we have a new mayor is people weren't satisfied with the priorities and where the budget was set. And so I think there needs to be some adjustments, which would mean some departments would maybe need to be cut and others be given more funding. And so that's a big discussion when we start talking about how do we realign priorities.
To this page, to this right here. I totally agree. I'm glad you brought it up. I see 3 ways to do it. One way is what was already mentioned with allocating. So let's focus on highway, streets, and roads right now, right?
I think I would agree that
Okay.
let's solve that first, and then we have a clear picture.
And I'm not saying that I have all of the answers, but these are 3 ideas or 3 ways you could address this problem. We've talked about reallocating interest. There are other things you could do as well. We could identify those. But interest is a big one, and it would give more funding to highway, streets, and roads. What you see before you right now is the L2 funding, and you can see the 8 funds that get property tax from us. You can see the total in 26. You can see that percentage. I did use the same percentage to allocate or to present this budget to you to allocate the new property tax. That's something that could change. You could look at those departments and reallocate property tax. And the third one you talked about, which is a little bit of a Band-Aid, but we talked about that in the last meeting. You could use reserves. There are reserves in highway, streets, and roads. And probably with any solution that you come up with this year, we'll use some reserves. In this instance, it'll just depend on, and that's, I really am maybe pushing you guys a little bit. I hate to use that word, but I want you guys to decide. I want you guys to discuss this and decide. I really do.
Mayor, I'm glad Rich brought this up because as I've looked at it, one thing I think I don't think it's something that can be achieved in this year's budget cycle, but something that will help with, because this issue we have with the street fund, it's not going to go away with one budget cycle, I don't think. And so I think we've got to kind of make a long-term plan for how we address this. But I think we should at least start having a conversation about what's the appetite for and the possibilities of looking at moving the library to a district library. That takes it out of our 3%. I think there are benefits to the library. They obviously now have to live within their levied amount, but there are different statutes and rules about their levy, I believe, and how it can grow. And so, I think that's something, you look at that's $2.3 million essentially that now can be reallocated to the general fund or the street fund or something like that. So I think that's one solution we should start talking about. I think the interest income for the street fund is a good start as well. I'd be open to other ideas, other solutions for it, but
Mr. Mayor?
That's my example of maybe changing not the level of service or what you provide as service, but maybe the access or the number of hours that you provide as access. You could help effectuate a change there. Can the library serve, and this is just an example, every department should look at these kinds of things, but can the library serve the community in the same way from 12 to 8 as they do 8 to 8?
And Councilman Nichols.
Hi, Rich. So does this budget include any foregone for capital?
No.
All right, could you walk through that and explain a little bit about
Sure.
what that option might be?
Will you go down, just scroll down to right there. Okay, so how the L2 works is it takes the highest of the last 3 years' budget, and it allows that budget to be increased, the budget to be increased by 3%. That has been done in this budget. You don't have to take it all, you don't have to take 3%. You could take something less, but what's presented to you includes that. It does also include a estimate for annexation and for new construction. Those numbers actually, I think, will be fairly close, but they're never finalized until November. That's the process. We'll give the L2 to the county in September after we make our request, our budget request, and they'll finalize it and get back to us. So there might be some slight adjustments there that we need to make. But when you have, then you add all of that up, and you have the ability on that number to take 1% of it from the foregone, and that amount, that 1%, will be added back into your budget authority every year. And I have included that in this proposal. I say request, proposal, because that's what it is. So, and that's the number we're working with. There is also the ability to take an additional 3% of the foregone. It's a one-time only. It reduces your foregone balance. It does not go into your budget authority as a reoccurring year to year. It's one time, and that's 3%. You do have to specify what capital project you're going to spend that on. And it's a resolution, very easy to do. I do think that we have enough reserves enough foregone, I gotta use the right words here, everybody will be confused, to look at that if you wanted to, but it is not part of this proposal.
And could that be used to solve the street department issue? Would that be considered capital? The street improvements?
Tom would have to identify a project that is not maintenance that he could use that money on. And sure, then it would free up existing money in his budget that he could use for maintenance.
And do we know what that foregone for capital, what's the maximum it could be?
1.1.
Yeah, our current balance is 5 million, and I do think that number is just slightly too high, the 3% foregone. It's I've calculated that at 1.125. It might be closer to 1.1, but it's $1 million. It's $1,100,000.
But just for one-time use, we would
That's
only have
one-time
that
use,
for this
and it
year.
will reduce the 5.4, and you will not be able to put it back in. That's why I think it's really important to consider taking that 1%, because you get that, it's built into your authority.
So it's,
But yes, you could do the other.
It's one, we can do the 1% though, and then take the additional 3%. It's not.
That
it's
is
not
correct.
Instead of, okay, yeah.
Right, well, and there's a pecking order, that's exact, you couldn't choose any other way, you have to do.
Yeah.
The L2 has to go in those orders, right? I've had someone ask me, well, let's just use foregone and not take the 3% increase on the budget. It doesn't work that way. You have to do it in that pecking order. Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Tom Kirkman, Public Works. I know that the street department put in their budget, I think about 750,000 for capital equipment purchases. They're in dire need of a new vac truck and stuff, so that's 750 there.
Right there.
Do we have to,
And
do we
that
have to
would-
keep the lump, or could we just take 750 of it?
You can just take, yes, you can, you do not have to take 3%. You could take any amount up to
Oh,
the 3%.
The only thing that worries me is that's a one-time fix, right?
Right.
And I think this is gonna be an ongoing problem personally. And so I think there needs to be a path forward on this. I know, and I guess I'll just say this, like, over probably the last 5 to 10 years, the street department has lowered their levy rate to the tune of a lot to give room in the general fund. And streets did that because they're team players, they wanted to help. And I think now might be a time for others to be team players and want to help, in my opinion.
In a perfect world, so I think I agree with everyone here. We would request the 1% of foregone over and over and over again and try and build that $5.4 million into our reoccurring budget authority.
So what are the downsides for using the foregone for capital?
Just that you lose it, that it doesn't become part of your reoccurring authority. That's probably the biggest downside.
All right, thank you.
so with the, so there's, you keep saying 5 million?
Right,
Where's
that current foregone balance of
Oh, I
5.4
see.
million.
Okay.
So what that represents is past councils not increasing the budget by 3%. If you guys were to back off on this budget, so you wouldn't take any foregone and you'd back off that 3%. So say you decided you only wanted to go 2%, the difference between 2 and 3, the 1%, would be accounted for
Okay,
in the foregone. It's not money, it's not levied, it's just tracked. And it's available for you to access in the future.
so what would be, if this isn't a good way to, well, I'm not saying it's not a good way, but the foregone balance, what would be an example of something that we would use that for that would be really in keeping with the purpose of that money? Can you give me an example of what we might use that money for?
Well, any city expense,
Anything? Okay,
the first 1% can go to your maintenance and operations, your salaries, your wages. It gets built into the budget and it becomes part of it.
okay, and that's that 1%, 375,000 there that we're
Yeah,
adding
that's-
into the budget, yeah,
That's right.
okay.
And it has been part of the allocation that's above it, so that there was a bigger pie to allocate to the 8 funds. And then the legislature has said on that 3%, they want it to be a capital line item. Which I think is, we always say if you're going to use reserves, make sure it's one time, it's not reoccurring. I think that's what the legislature is saying there.
Okay.
Use that on a
A
capital item.
project. Yeah.
Right.
Based on the budget as it's built now, are there any projects that are budgeted that we could use that 3% for in order to kind of globally free up another $1.1 million?
Sure, anything that's capital, just like Tom
Okay,
mentioned, if he's gonna purchase a vac truck,
okay,
the ones that were scheduled, because you can use this foregone in any way you want, but any of those capital projects that were scheduled, you bet.
Mr. Mayor, it would just be, I think, kind of my position. I don't know. I think for the long-term health of the city, it's best to try and work through the 1% until foregone is expended, liquidated, is added back into the budget. Because it does affect that 3% so much. If we take that 1.1 million out, but we can't add that into our budget authority, that has a long-term effect, I think, on the total size of the budget.
Maybe I'm missing, maybe I don't completely understand.
Because that 3% can't be used to increase our 3% budget authority. It doesn't count towards it, right?
Let's take a long-term, really quick.
Yeah.
To do what Dakota's saying, it'll take about 10 years. I've looked at it. If the
10 years.
council, yeah, if the council were to budget a 3% and a 1% over the next 10 years, then that $5.4 million becomes part of the next budgeting year's authority. They can access that. But if we were to, and it's, I'm not saying right or wrong, but if we were to use $1 million of that this year for a capital plan, you would never reoccur that. You'd only have available to go into the next 10 years $4 million.
But to sustain it for 10 years, the amount was what now? 300 and something thousand?
Yeah, well, it'll change each year, but you'd use the 1% and it'll be a little higher every year. This year it's 375.
So if we took that 375-ish, we could like sustain something for 10 years if we took that
No,
amount.
it becomes a permanent part. It becomes a part of the city's budget authority forever,
Okay,
unless the legislature changes the L2 or something, right? So, yeah.
yeah.
So Rich, does the capital improvements, if paid for by foregone, have to be specified now, like upfront in the budget or sometime during the year?
We will pass a resolution in August that specifies which capital we are going to use that foregone on. It has to be now.
I mean, specifically,
Very
this
specific.
truck.
Yep, we will, so if that was the example, we would say, we're passing a resolution, we're gonna use this much foregone, 750,000, and we are buying a vac truck. That is how specific that resolution would be. Yes.
Thank you.
But there was a need, Tom, for more than the vac truck though, right? You were saying like 750,000 worth of need, more than just the vac truck, if I remember right.
Yeah, street department had a demo yesterday, vac truck, and they're getting close to 700,000, so there's not a lot of extra.
Yeah.
We were hoping with whatever was left, we could maybe get, a piece of equipment that could,
Yeah.
but we don't know. It may use it all, or, so.
Tom, how do you want to solve this? What would be your choice here, ideally?
So I think, like I had said earlier, I believe there's been two different occasions where it's been like a $600,000 or $800,000 hit to streets to lower that levy rate over the years. And that's just money that they'll never get back, right? I mean, that's hard to recoup. And so I think it's a long-term plan of trying to get that levy rate back up, because I believe the state funds are just gonna become more and more chaotic, and we need to have something a little more stable, right? To offset the peaks and the valleys. But I get that that's hard. That's gonna be hard.
So we change your levy rate, if we increase your levy rate, we have to decrease somebody else's, is that correct?
That's correct.
Let's be careful in using the word levy rate. It's
Okay.
an allocation. The
Allocation,
city
okay.
has a levy rate,
I got you.
and we allocate it. We do show that allocation on the L2, but I worry that if we call it a levy rate, then someone might assume
We
it's
can-
theirs, and you can't change it, but you
Our
can.
internal.
Okay,
yeah.
it's an
Right.
allocation. Okay, if we change your allocation from the property tax that we get, then we have to If we increase yours, we have to decrease someone else's,
That would
correct?
be correct.
Okay.
That's the tricky part.
That's the hard decision that you guys would consider in this scenario.
So have we looked at how that might work?
Well, I mean, we've talked about one example, and I'm sure there are others. But if we changed a level of service in the library, then maybe some of those property tax funds could go to street. So there's an example.
Sure. Got a question? Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Who,
Oh, me. So like when Dakota was talking about the library district or changing it to a district, what would that look like? Like what does that, Dakota, what does that mean? Because we own it now, but if we, who would own it then?
and I don't know, I'm not, it would involve legal, it would probably involve the city, it will probably involve the library. I'm not sure who would carry that water, and it would have to be voted on.
From the city, from the citizens, okay.
Well, from the district, and I'm assuming the district boundaries would mirror the city boundaries. I don't know, I don't think it has to be that way, but that's probably the best way to discuss it in theory. But yeah. And then they would become their own entity and have a board of commissioners, I think they call them commissioners as well, I can't remember what the board's called, that would govern that, and they would have their own levy rate. They would be separate, like an ambulance, like a Portneuf District Library is also a separate district. So it'd be, that's what it would be.
I think the district would purchase the asset, right, from us too.
That might be the case. I've not delved into that in details, and I've never been involved in a transaction like that. So I don't have all
We'd
those
have to look into
answers.
it, so.
Yeah, have something to add.
Well, Mayor, I just think, I only brought that up because I should have been more clear of my view of kind of this shortfall we're facing with the street department is, I don't think we can fix it this budget cycle. This is going to take
It's a
multiple
it's a
budget
phase,
cycles.
phased in.
And so I think looking at, the library as a district is something that is part of a multi-year process. I think between moving the interest funds back over, that brings us from 1.3 down to 7 or 8. And we can use the street fund reserves for this budget cycle. If we wanted to try and find more savings elsewhere to place towards streets, we could.
Yeah.
Or reallocate things. But this is going to take, I think, discipline from the council for multiple budget cycles.
Solve it all
Yeah,
this time, but taking bites.
yeah.
I know.
Honestly, just $500,000 in reallocation from general to street, that's going to require a lot of heavy lifting for us already in the general fund. So I don't think we have to solve it all in FY '27, but we got to make some significant strides towards it. And so, moving to a district library is something we could do in a work session at some point to start talking about what that process looks like and if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, Councilman Mangum.
I agree with Councilmember Bates. And I remember making that comment about that library district in a previous meeting. Problem with that is, like he had said, it's not going to resolve immediately because going to vote, if the vote doesn't pass or, other things, then we're still stuck with the library. And so we have to think about it in terms of we still have the library and we still got to take care of streets until such time as if that vote does pass. And it correct, I don't think it's going to fix itself in this budget cycle, but it'd be great to look at a percentage as to how much can we fund this budget session or cycle, and then the next one, and then the next one, can we allocate 25% to this shortfall this time, 32 the next, and so on and so forth, or how
Are you
should we look at that?
talking a reallocation of property tax? Or are you talking of about the interest?
I'm talking about the interest.
Okay.
What percent could go towards it to help with that, or percent in the reallocation of taxes? How could, like, one or the, or both? Like, what, from a percentage standpoint, how can we look at this incrementally for the next 3 budgets?
Yeah, I think incrementally is a good point. And Councilman Nichols.
Sure. It could make some sense just to pay for the shortfall out of reserves. I mean, this is like a textbook example of why you have reserves. Something comes up, you got the reserves to pay for it, problem solved.
And that's kind of the way street department's budget's been run, is we're trying to treat it like a utility. You cubby away every penny you can get because, cars are becoming more fuel efficient, right? And so we get less highway user money because of the gas tax. And so we have some volatility in these state funds. So that's why we've tried to throw as much into reserves as we can, kind of like the utilities, to take the peaks and the valleys and try and mellow it out.
When you say reserves, are we talking about
Street excess reserves.
street
Yes,
excess
department.
reserves? Okay, and how much is in that?
And I think they've got, yeah, so it's probably like 5 or 6 when you subtract the 25% of mandatory
Mandatory,
reserves.
500 or 600,000?
Million.
Oh, 5 or 6 million,
Yes.
okay. So that's kind of my leaning, is to solve this with rainy day funds, because here we are on a rainy day. And on top of that, start planning for that incremental shift in how interest is returned to you. Consider the library district possibly. I think this is, if there ever was a 3-year plan that needs to be thought through here, this is it. But we can't do that in the next 3 months. So paying for it out of reserves seems to me to be the easiest way, the least painful way to deal with this now, with the understanding that we have got to commit to planning for the next 3 years, how we're gonna incrementally solve this.
So one other caveat here, you could look at highway, streets, and roads shortfall in total from their reserves, or we could make the interest adjustment there, and they wouldn't have to use as much as you're splitting the use of reserves between funds. You could use highway, streets, and roads for the increment there. If I'm making sense to you, it's pretty clear in my mind. And then in the general fund, we would either have to find savings or use reserves for the difference
General fund reserves.
there. Yeah,
General.
sure.
Yeah, because that's what I wondered
So
about.
instead of the total amount coming out of highway, streets, and roads, you're saying, well, we're gonna give them their interest, then use the reserves to fill the gap. That makes the gap bigger in general fund. And we'll have to go to work in filling that gap, and it could be the use of reserves, right? So both funds would have to use some instead of one fund bearing it all.
Yeah, Councilman Paulson.
2 things. One, I agree with Nichols and Swanson, what you're saying about the reserves for streets. But for Rich, I thought I understood foregone, but now I'm more confused today.
Oh dear.
So the 1% you were saying will be added to the spending authority of the city. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. But then the 3%, that's separate, because there's the 5 million, and then using the 3% will reduce that to roughly 4.
That's right. So if we get to using, if you want to make a request of using the 3% of foregone, you'll get the money for that year. You'd get that amount of money for that year, but that dollar amount would not go into the budget next year to be levied again.
I see.
Although the 1% does work that way, right?
Okay.
The 1%, you'd get it this year, and it becomes a permanent part of the budget. So next year, you could levy for that as well.
Okay.
So you say that 1% is not in the budget, is presented then? That,
Is in the
is.
budget as presented.
So that 1%, so that 375,000 is added to the budget next year. We increase by 375
That's right.
next year. If it goes to 400 for 1% next year, we increase 400.
That's
and it just
right.
keeps to increasing every single year by that 1%.
It's included in your authority.
But that does not happen with the 3%. It decreases.
The 3% foregone.
Foregone, decrease, once we
It
spend
would
it.
decrease your foregone balance and you
Yes.
don't get to levy for it again.
Again.
Ever.
Got it.
Yes.
I would just make the point, I feel really strongly that at least whatever the interest is for street, that in this budget, we should allocate that to street.
That's,
That's my opinion. And it speaks to a broader point of this issue with the interest income. Last year, I felt the same way, that we needed to start adjusting. I personally don't think it's appropriate that we take funds that were, user rate funds, and we're taking the interest off those funds and putting it into the general fund.
a good step.
I don't think I'm not a lawyer. I can't make any determination, but to my eyes, it does seem like it opens the city up to potential litigation. And so this seems like an easy first step to start addressing what is a $3 million issue.
And
Can I,
sure, what, just to clarify, was that if we move that direction that Councilman Bates is saying, that was like 700,000 for
I
this
think
year,
it's
was
more
that
like 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
My number was high.
Yeah, okay.
But so, this is one of the issues that I have, and I appreciate. So I have one council member here that I think has a very legitimate approach. There's obviously other approaches, but no councilman can move on their own. Do 4 of you, I mean, you can't make
Yeah,
a
and that-
decision. I don't
that's
even know
what-
how to approach this because
That's what I was
do
gonna,
you guys like that idea?
Yeah.
Should I go ahead and present that, or,
yeah,
you know what
how,
I'm
Talking
saying?
about the interest? Going forward with that?
allocating the 400-ish thousand over.
We'll make a calculation and we'll get you the actual numbers, but in essence, taking a step to allocating interest in a better way, and we're gonna start with highway, streets, and roads this year.
Yeah, and I'll just ask the question and we can't vote, but we can talk about concurrence, that just,
Yeah, can we?
you know,
I
how,
don't
like,
even know.
how do counts one at a time, like, do you concur with that? Like taking that portion of the interest and putting it into streets this year?
I mean, I apologize for being late, so I missed that first discussion, so
We
I'm
didn't
still a
miss
little.
much of about this, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not opposed.
We have, right now, we make about $4 million of interest on our fund balances, on our cash balances. And we use it all in the general fund, which is fine. But a better accounting would be to split that up per the fund balance. So who's earning the interest gets the benefit of that interest. But it's probably not a change that we can make
All at once?
all at once because of the situation we have and how it supports so much in the general fund. But it'd be a good step. It could be a good step in answer if the council agrees. I don't want to say it'd be a good step because I'm not the council and I'm not making that decision. And that's why I'm asking if you guys agree or want to do that or not.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea, has merit. I'd love to hear what the plan is for the next year to reallocate, because it sounds like we're doing it in an increment, right? And so a piece of it will go to streets, but where does the next portion go? And next year, how do we cover that shortfall? And because I like the idea of having a plan prior to, right?
I think that's a great idea. I'm kind of excited with this OpenGov and with what just happened with our negotiations. I think I wish we could pass budgets in 2-year increments. In Oregon, you can, but we're Idaho and we can't. But we can show you an idea of what those next few years would be And I think that's what you're looking for. It'd be very helpful.
Yeah, okay.
For this year, I'd say yes. And I would kind of like to know what that would look like. For me, it's hard because I know some departments, make money and some have no revenue. And so I'd like to, I guess, in the future, kind of know more what that means and looks like. But for this year, yes, I think that the interest should go.
Okay,
Yeah, I would concur with using the interest, the 400 to 500,000, and then making up the difference with general fund reserves.
the difference with, okay, or there's also the option of street departments reserve, because they have
That's why
that,
street department,
like
oh, sorry.
5 million
That's
available.
probably, that's what I meant. So street department reserve, and then give them their interest back this year to cover that 1.2.
So they're not like totally dipping into their reserve
Yeah,
and,
and then I would add, though, that because we still have, you're gonna have to zoom out and zoom in on budgets, right? We still will have this global $1.2 million, chunk that we have to make up somewhere. And so we pull that 400 to 500,000 out of the general fund to put it where I think it rightly goes, then we are missing a chunk there. And I want to add that I'm also in favor of looking at using general fund reserves to make up for that this year, because it is a rainy day kind of situation.
Thank you for taking that next step.
Yeah, and so so we're being totally clear. If we do this, say it's $500,000, just for argument's sake, we're currently in a $47,000 shortfall in the general fund. We would then be looking at a $547,000 shortfall in the general fund. Okay, just want to make sure that's clear. But that, yeah, obviously, I think that's the path to go down.
okay, sure. Yeah, and one thing, we've had some meetings and other commitments for our general reserves that we've discussed. So, taking that out of general fund reserves could be an issue, in light of those prior conversations we've had about our reserves, the general reserves. So just keeping that in mind. We may not be able to dip into general city reserves for what you're saying.
I think what would happen there, and we need to be careful how we're discussing this, but
Yep.
I think what would happen there is if we were to do something like that, and down the road, our reserves were used, we would be dipping into that 3-month reserve. And so that's when I would come to you in the next year saying, okay, here's what's happened. We need to be really tight and start rebuilding that reserve. I hope that makes sense. Because it could possibly dip into that 3-month that we just hold. It's a benchmark. To be healthy.
Yes.
So for this year, I think we should just use street department reserves to cover a street department deficit and then work on this insurance issue, or excuse me, the interest issue later. But for this year, I'm for just using street department reserves to fund the gap
Okay.
and not messing around with the interest.
So that's what is presented, but I'm getting the feedback that there might be more council members wanting to do something different,
I understand.
and would put that proposal in front of you
Yeah.
as well. I mean, you can have several proposals, right? As we work through this.
Right, let's go back down here.
Was it Councilman Bates or Swanson saying to use, did you mean general or the streets reserve?
I meant general reserves.
Okay, because I agree with Councilman Nichols to use the street reserves.
Just the street reserves.
And not the interest?
I'm still trying to explore all of that process,
Yeah,
but
that-
use the street
Hold
reserve.
off on that allocation of the interest earned for now, is what you're saying. Just use 100% street reserve funds for the shortfall. Did I hear
No,
that right?
if we're going to use any sort of reserve, I think it should just be the street reserves, not general.
Okay.
But I'm still okay with
Yeah,
going through the interest process.
what's your take on, the $4 million pot of money that we have that's interest earned and allocating that portion, that 405,000-ish to streets only, if that makes sense?
Well, my question with that then, does that mean we have to cut $400,000 to $500,000 from?
It would. If we go forward with this reallocating interest to the portion to streets, yes, we would have that shortfall to deal with.
Oh, boy. Then, no, I think it should just be street reserves.
Do you want to keep thinking and we'll go to
You said
council member Satterfield?
Just thinking face on.
I think reallocation is important, and it's needed. I'd like to hear from Tom, his opinion on the reserves for streets, and if he thinks that that's functionable, right? Because it's his department, or not his department, but within his wheelhouse. And is that functional? Is that doable? Does it make sense? Or is it just asinine?
Hello. We are good any way it goes. I mean, that's why we put reserves the way we have, to buffer for the downs and the goods, right? Like I said, the street department has always been a team player. They just want to help. So if it's too big of a hit this year, we get it. We would like that, because that's interest moving forward, right? Forever. But if it's too big of a hit, we get that, and we can use all reserves. We're totally good either way.
So I'd like to see a plan on the reallocation instead of us just willy-nilly, we're just going to throw out some reallocation. And again, I do think that reallocation of the interest is important and that it is a good step. And it should go to where it's due. But I also do agree with Councilmember Nichols that we should take streets reserves and fund them for this year's shortfall and come up with a plan for future increments to shift either at a just all out in one budget, we just shift next year, or in segments shift.
Okay.
Question. On the interest, can we do half? Could we do like 200,000 their direction instead of the 400,000 and help them that way a little bit, but then still use the rest of the reserves to
You
make up?
can. Yep. You could do
This
that.
is really hard. This is a hard thing.
That would just be a tracking, right? Instead of, I mean, a plan would be like, okay, we're gonna do highway, streets, and roads this year. We're gonna look at enterprise next year. I mean, there's a real question on all the general governmental funds that could remain in the general fund or not. So, yeah. But if you start, so it would just be harder to track.
Okay.
But that's what we do. We track things. Because then you're splitting, you didn't just move highway, streets, and roads, you moved a portion of highway, streets, and roads. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
But
and I
yes, you could
see
do
it
that.
long-term, like I agreed, like possibly giving them their interest that, because that's what they earn. Just trying to figure out this year with such a big gap. You know, I agree. I'm grateful you guys have reserves. And this is kind of the rainy day thing, right? So I'm trying to decide if I
It's a tough
go with,
question. Yeah.
with Nichols and,
And we
Do it
get
that
that
way,
too.
but-
That's why we're willing to work with whatever we need. So, one thing if I could, like, I started at the street department 2001 and worked my way up. When I started in 2001, the paving budget was $1 million for materials. And up till about 3 or 4 years ago, it was $1 million for materials. over the past few years, we have started using some of those reserves to try and offset that a little bit. But it's getting harder and harder for them to try and do road work, you know, because prices are through the roof. And so, like, if we don't do it this year, we totally get it, but we probably need to work on it.
And see what's going through my mind with our general reserves, like, you know, us sitting down and trying to make a projection on where those general reserves are going to go, and just wrapping our arms around that general reserve, like what are the future needs, understanding that. You know, I don't know if we're at a point right now where we can say, okay, rob Peter to pay Paul and take our general reserves. Just food for thought. I'm not sure we're ready for that. That if right now I'm thinking that if we take that portion of the interest or whatever, like where we're at right now, without really having our arms wrapped around where that general reserve funds are going, we would have to like do department cuts to cover that this year, I honestly feel. So, and we could still go that way, but I think like saying we're just going to forego his reserves to take out of general reserves, I just don't think we have our arms wrapped around that yet.
Okay, you convinced me.
And we agree
So-
with that.
So, what I'm hearing, maybe as a consensus, and maybe you can help me with this, Mayor. If you use reserves, street reserves, to fund that hole, you are, for the most part, happy with the proposal.
Yeah.
That's what's proposed.
Yeah, just another like quick straw poll, like are we leaning toward now that let streets use the reserves for this year? We really look into digging into this issue about how we allocate interest, get that. But for now, how are we feeling about just having streets use their reserve for this year only? Okay.
Can I make a comment
Sure.
on this? I think I'm in the minority on it, but I still feel like we need to take the 500,000 in interest and reallocate it. I feel like whether we start that process in this year's budget cycle or future ones, it doesn't get easier. You know, it's going to be hard no matter what we do. And so I wouldn't be comfortable kicking the can down the road. And I think we need to make a good faith effort to show that we're not going to just rely on reserves to fund. And let me just back up a second and say, I have no problem using reserves in this situation because I understand this was completely unforeseen.
Surprise,
It's
yeah.
complete. That's why, like everyone has said, like Brent, Councilmember Nichols said, that's why you have reserves. But with all that being said, I think if we are serious about addressing this interest reallocation and addressing the long-term issue in the street department, we have to start making some steps towards addressing those issues. And I feel like taking $400,000 or $500,000 in that interest makes sense as an initial step. It's going to be hard. It's going to require some really difficult decisions. But you know, from my point of view, streets, you'd be hard pressed to find too many city services that affect literally every single taxpayer like our streets do. And we can't say that really about every other thing that's in the general fund. And so I think sometimes this job sucks, but that's the decision we made to be here. And so part of that is we got to make hard decisions. And so I would advocate for us at least starting to address it now. I understand.
Yeah, your stance is
thinking.
let's take that 400 to 500-ish thousand now
Yeah.
this year.
And then cover whatever else the gap is in streets with their reserves. But then we're going to have to find that in the general fund.
Okay, got it.
We-
Okay,
And then I just want,
sure.
I fully agree with you, I really do, but as Rich kind of alluded earlier, I'm really worried about reducing the general fund because of a certain situation, and that really worries me for this year
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah, because there's a good chance that if we take that 500,000, reserves really isn't the answer yet. We have to make cuts elsewhere.
Yeah, Mayor, I'll just be very clear. I would not support using general fund reserves
Okay.
for that deficit or shortfall.
Yeah,
So you would be looking, this is good, this is really good. If we took so first of all, to your question, and I was just talking to Chantel, I think we can put a plan together really quickly for the interest and have that to you. And we'll do the first step of that, highway, streets, and roads only, so that you could consider it for this time, and then we'll show you what the next year's will be, okay? And we can get that to you. So what I hear Councilmember Bates saying is he would support taking that first step, but not using general fund reserves to fill the hole that's created in general fund, but finding savings
that's
Correct.
in the
as
general
well.
fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's
And,
clear.
Yeah, just whether we do that this year or start next year, at some point it has to start, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad it's a discussion because discussions are meant to help you think things through. So I'm okay going along with the consensus to take the total out of the street budget. Although I do agree with Councilman Bates that it just kicks the can down the road. I mean, if we don't do it this year, we'll have to do it next year. And kick down so we're never the bad guys, right? I mean, I don't want to shy away from my duties to be responsible to the voters and the taxpayers here. So, I mean, so I guess I'm kind of split. But if the consensus is to pay for it all out of the reserve funds on the streets, I'll consider that. But I do think it's important that we take this seriously about being willing to make hard decisions.
So you'd be open-minded to coming up with that shortfall out of non-reserve
Yeah, I would.
savings? So, okay, and we'll keep going. This is good, did you want to add something?
And maybe I'll get with Jay. He's not here today, and I'm sure he's doing some good things, but I think that study in HR might be critical to some of these decisions that you want to make, and
Yeah.
Well,
we want to make sure we're treating our people correctly and properly, and so maybe make that a priority and get it going.
and that's not even, I mean, even what we're considering now,
That's right.
we're taking, $500,000 out of the general fund. We've also got a laundry list of other things that want
Yeah,
to come out of
this
the
is just
general
the
fund too.
start.
Sure.
This is just
Yeah,
the start.
yeah.
So, I mean, there's going to be hard decisions either way we go. It's just
Sure.
a matter of how so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? All right, what I'm seeing now, we've narrowed it down to either take all of the reserves this year out of the street budget to cover that, or do the interest, 450-ish thousand, allocate that to streets, so there's a lesser amount of reserve to take. So I'm seeing it narrowed down to those two options.
Yeah, this is super hard, but I agree, like, the issue is there, it'll be there next year, that we just need to, I agree with Dakota. It's gonna hurt, if it's gonna hurt this year, it's gonna hurt next year, and everything goes up every year on costs, so maybe we bite the bullet and do it this year.
Okay, thank you.
I think we, just stick with the idea of the reserves. I'd still like to see a plan on how we execute this reallocation. I don't think it's necessarily kicking it down the can if we come up with a specific plan on how to attack it versus just attacking it and now we've got another shortfall that we've got to fix either which way. And so I'd like to see a plan on how to move the reallocation.
For this year, like, so
You-
far
We
you're
can, we can,
saying.
we
for-
can start it this year, but I'd like to see how we're gonna attack it in years to come. And then I'd like to see an idea on how we restructure to where we make up the difference this year. Or we do it next year, we still have a shortfall, but we have a plan for next year. And we can have departments come to us next year in mind that you don't have this interest coming to your department. So that way it does help to balance the budget for this next year and they're not budgeting with that amount of interest in mind.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you would not take the interest this year and give that to streets?
I don't really mind if we do or don't take the interest. I think that I just really want to see a plan for how we execute with the interest.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a
So-
consensus on that whole interest allocation thing that, do we start that this year or do we, put a plan together and then do it after?
I'd like to see a plan put together for it first. See how we execute it and then move forward from there. Right now, it sounds like legally we're not in any bind or any trouble doing it the way we've been doing it. And so if we come up with a plan, it helps us to understand how we're going to execute this. And it could help us to see any pitfalls or any upcoming shortfalls that we might be walking into versus just reallocating now. And now we do have a definite shortfall that we're having to mitigate. So if we take it out of reserves this year, come up with the plan. And if you can come up with a plan before August, we can always readdress it then.
We can easily do that.
Okay, all right. Councilman Paulson, do you have any other
We,
thoughts there? Just like
Just
what,
definitely
100%?
use street reserves.
Uh-huh,
Also not opposed to the interest thing. It's just for the next X amount of years, I'd just like to know what the numbers, the who, what, when, where,
okay. I'm feeling a good little split here. And so I think like what we can do, I don't know if we'll solve it today, but I think like next step that Rich and I and, the department heads get together, we maybe come up with some proposals of what could happen internally, and represent
of the
that.
general fund,
Yeah,
if we do the allocation, correct? Is that what you're saying? How we would make up that difference?
yeah, like how I think I'm like headed in the direction of, okay, this option is on the table to explore. We haven't figured out how we'll cover that 450 shortfall that has to come from somewhere else.
Okay.
Like we take a look at numbers and see what we can come up with for reductions, I guess.
Right.
Because I'm not feeling a clear path forward. I'm feeling a split on how the council wants to,
Right.
they all want to proceed and correct this, but I'm feeling a real split. Do we bite the bullet right now and do round one or explore more? I'm not feeling like I have a clear consensus.
Mayor, what would be your suggestion as you're the one who delineates the decision for the splits?
Yeah, I do feel like we need to stop kicking the can down the road, and maybe it's not that full 450, but we take a look at it. Like Councilman Bates brings up a good point. Like people wanted change, people didn't want cans kicked down the road out there, so we gotta make some tough decisions. I feel like we need to figure out how we can come up with this and not use all reserves. So.
Let me, and I'm not trying to jump ahead, but so on the calendar, we do have a scheduled meeting for July 9th. And then we publish and we have our public hearing, and we can still make changes there. So there's 2 meetings there. The public hearing would be in a Thursday night meeting, and then you adopt on the 20th. Do you have a feeling like that would be enough for you guys to get there? Or do you think we need to look at scheduling an additional meeting?
Well, Rich, on that, so what is the deadline the budget has to be published to start the public hearing process? Like
The July 29th,
July 29th?
right? So when you publish, when I say you can make changes, once you publish, you can make changes, but they have to be changes downward. You cannot make changes upward. If that, right? So you still could adjust, but it has to be downward. But we can publish with that in mind.
I think we're gonna need another meeting between now and July 4th,
9th.
9th.
Okay,
4th, because
we'll
I'm
go
not
look
gonna
at
be
the
here
calendar and
after
I'll
that.
get with
So
Connie
Between now and July
to
9th.
make sure.
have a-
I leave on
another
July
one.
5th, so if it's possible to do a meeting before,
Are you back? What's your?
I'm not back till the very end of July.
Oh, so you wouldn't be in the July 9th meeting anyway.
No.
Got you.
Okay. But I think we have some preliminary direction of where we want to
Mm-hmm.
go, but this is an evolving process. We still have a lot of other things to discuss with other departments. So I'm feeling now like there's some direction to go back and sharpen pencils or whatever, but, this is still evolving.
I'm just wondering what the timing is on discussing the rest of these departmental priorities. Because that gets added into the
Yeah,
the number that we're gonna have to adjust in that general fund.
Only if you're willing to fund them. Right now, I wouldn't fund them, and I would, if we pass this budget, they would have to come at a later date as a budget amendment or next year.
So,
not fund them, like, I'm sorry, like fund who? I didn't
In
catch
fund,
that.
in, I mean,
any of
right,
the
Oh,
departmental
any of
asks.
the- Yeah,
I would say not to fund anything on the list and just leave the budget flat as it is. Because we don't have any extra money to move around to pay for any of those things.
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
So as we look towards what to do with this interest, it goes beyond just the street department, though. We have other departments that arguably should be getting interest as well, correct?
oh yeah, every fund,
Right,
fund.
right. So this issue is much bigger than just the street
Yeah, I'm just
department.
not sure we can solve it all
That-
this year.
that-
We have the
yeah, that's what I
bandwidth
get-
That's
Right.
the,
to do
that's the
it.
plan we're gonna put together.
So-
Chantel and I are gonna work together and show you what it would take, how many years it might take if we do it in a step process.
So part of the issue with the interest being put in this general pool is because things were viewed in a global perspective. So globally, we're getting this interest, and so the departments don't get it, we put it here. And so that's why I kind of like that siloed approach, because now we're taking their interest and putting it back into their specific silos or funds. But then once you whittle it down, or you get the bigger picture, now we're no longer in silos, we're looking at that general ask or that general budget. And that's why I make the suggestion of, I don't think funding any new projects for this next year is wise, because we don't have anything to fund any new projects for this next year,
Unless we cut something
unless we
else.
cut some things.
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Mayor, just an idea that I've talked with Rich and Chantel about, because I think part of what gets hard is we all have priorities as a council and as a mayor, and it sometimes feels like, where is there any money to do what our priorities are? And,
Right.
Beautification is important to all of us. We want to commit to that. One idea I've had is our salary savings. So currently, as of today, there's a $1.5 million in salary savings roughly
For 26, fiscal
for
year 26.
FY '26. I think as a process and a way we can operate going forward is, I think every 3 months, all salary savings should be reallocated back into the general fund. And Rich can report to us in council meeting on a quarterly basis, hey, this is how much salary savings there is. And we can do budget amendments, we can allocate those funds and do, if we need to buy a mower, well, we have $70,000 in salary savings and we can buy a mower. I mean, Rich, is that a feasible approach to some of these things? Because there's a disconnect sometimes between what we budget and what actually gets spent, and it's not like we're locked in once we set the budget.
That is certainly a reasonable approach. It's something you could do. The only concern there might be is that budgets are guardrails, budgets aren't real. There are always, in every department, some line items that go over, some line items that go under. And we need to make sure that we don't tighten it up so much that they don't have the ability to manage their department. Right? And so we just need to look at that and watch that, because we don't want to make it a nightmare for them. I mean, right? Sometimes they'll budget so much for, I mean, these are facetious examples, but they'll budget so much for Post-it notes and they'll budget so much for a copier, and they might flip-flop every other year or something, just a little bit, but.
Yeah, and
we
I
wanna be able to
understand
do
that.
that,
I
yeah.
understand that. I'm only talking about salary savings, and I think there has to be some give and take of, yeah, to me, morally, if we as a council pass a budget that says you get X amount for salaries, if you don't spend that on salaries, that needs to come back so that council can reallocate that on what their priorities are.
And we can give you those numbers for sure.
Yeah, I duly noted. I completely understand what you're saying, Councilman Nichols.
So I have just a general question. Let's say at the end of the year, a department hasn't spent their whole budget. What happens to that money? Does it go into?
Tell me which department. Just pick a department, it's fine, but I need to know, because it will depend.
Police.
Okay, it'll drop it. Two things could happen. The chief of police could be in front of the mayor asking for that to be allocated to Fund 78. If the mayor says yes, then we would allocate that to Fund 78. If he doesn't ask, or the mayor says no, it would drop to the general fund balance.
Okay,
And that would be the case for any general fund department.
But even if it does go into Fund 78, the department head has to come back to the council for that specific project or.
There's some
expense, though.
ambiguity there as far, and again, I'm brand new. I think in the past, the mayor has approved some of those things. I think now that might be what has been the process that we want to implement.
So
Is that fair?
how often does that happen? I mean, consistently that we have, a little bit of excess money that would go into reserves?
Yes. I mean, that's why we have healthy reserves. Our department heads are great. They never, I don't like absolutes. They're very good at managing their money, and there is usually leftover, yes. The department heads do a great job in managing their budgets, and that's why I really like the idea of passing a more general budget and saying, go get your job done. You have this job, we know what the end result is, this is your resource, go get her done, because they will.
So you would ask which department, does it matter?
Well, yeah, if it's not general fund, it would fall to that other fund balance.
Right,
Yeah.
but as far as the general fund departments, they're all treated the same?
And, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to, or maybe if the council has an appetite to fund some of these specific department requests, which would mean cutting something else, right? and those things that jump out to me are the comp study. I think that's gonna be really helpful for us, even though it costs money to do, but could give us some good data, especially since we're staffed relatively higher than the benchmarks indicate. And then the update to the SCADA system, it seems to me like that's a,
I think, I guess I wish I wouldn't have mentioned that. I
Okay.
think that we're getting ahead on the SCADA system. What was mentioned in fire, and I can be corrected, was that the SCADA and what was the other thing? They were coming up. The SCADA was not one of their 3 requests for
Oh,
this
okay.
coming
Yeah,
year, but that they were something that
yeah.
was coming up. Is that right?
Yeah, so the SCBA's and the pumper trucks are things that we are gonna need to purchase probably within the next 3 years. So we
They
wanted to
wanted
put them
it.
on your radar because
Right.
they're gonna be about $4 million, and the pumper trucks come, as, we bought all 3 of them at one time, so they're all gonna come due at the same time. And the discussion, I think with Councilmember Bates, was that he would like to review purchasing 1 per year to stretch that out. And so, but it's not the need this year. The capital asks for ours were the roof for Station 3, a BC rig, and then purchasing some of the recliners
Furniture.
and stuff for the,
I guess I'm just trying to put a cruciality grade on these
Right.
these requests, and so and personally, I mean, I can make some of those assumptions myself. So the comp study, and then thank you for the clarification on that, and then I would really love to fund the urban forestry position. I think it's just right up there with the goals that we've set as a council for beautification in the city.
Sure.
So do we have to come to consensus on the items that we, I know Councilman Mangum said we don't just fund 0 of it. How do we manage the discussion if there's certain things that I or other council folks feel strongly about?
Yeah.
One reason it's presented this way is because how I approach the budget, and so I will own that. When we first got here, I didn't even know if we'd be able to fund benefits and any kind of wage increase. I thought we'd be in the negative. And so I had told everybody, it was back, I believe in March, that we needed to have a flat budget. And there was a little bit of
A lot of
discrepancy of what
Yeah.
that meant. And so finally, I realized that, and I said, flat budget means bottom line. So when you have an increase in wages and wage-related expenses, you're funding that out of your M&O because the very bottom line was flat, and that's how we discussed that. That's why these things are not included in the budget. We could approach it in a different way. We could add all of those back into the budget, and the difference between our revenues and expenses would grow, right? And you guys would have to have the discussion. So however you discuss that, on how to make that balance again. And I do believe that's how they approached it in the past. But that's why I put those in front of you, because I didn't want to discount any department's need and what they might be foregoing this year in the budget because of how we approached it. But yeah, that's why we gave you the list, but that's why they're not included, is because we couldn't afford it. And it bear out. It really did, where we funded wages, we funded benefits, and we're very close.
Yeah.
So that bore out.
Okay,
Yeah.
Councilman Mangum. Oh, or were you finished?
I'm finished.
Okay.
So I agree with Councilwoman Swanson on those things are important, especially the forestry, and I think that study is very important to make sure that we're treating the staff equitably and things are done correctly. But Rich, you did say that this is the bare minimum. This is just operating the city, essentially.
What I mean by that is it goes back to you guys might have a different direction. This is keeping status quo. Thank you. Why couldn't I think of that earlier? This budget presented to you is status quo. Yeah, that's what it is.
So,
If you guys want to make changes or adjustments, we can. I would love to. That'd be great. And we'll get them to you. And we've got a few that we're going to. But yeah, this keeps the city chugging along like it is.
so not much fat
Nope.
to cut off.
I think the department heads would tell you that they've slimmed down. And they have. We have a 1.5% increase in our chart, and everyone's funded with a step.
So
We ended up with about 8% increase in our benefits.
Yeah.
And that's included. So yeah,
I agree with the sentiment. People want change, and they've wanted change. They got change. But there's a specific amount of change that requires planning before just throwing out changes. Because change just for the sake of change is dangerous, especially if you don't know the trajectory of where you're going. And so I think that leaving this budget the way it is flat for now, and then let's plan on how we're going to address some of those things, I think it'd be great. Past would have been like, hey, let's just pull from reserves and let's make those things happen. But I don't think that that's the way that you should run the city, is just solely off reserves. And so until such a time as we can fund some of these, I think that we just
this
chug
idea
along.
just popped into my head. Because how do we affect that, right? How do we get there? Instead of being in the same position next year, do we need to have a budget meeting every month?
It's gonna be
Starting
my
I would
statement.
in
love that.
October,
My hope is that we make budgeting, this is just
right?
it's a constant, and
And then in October through March, we maybe could address some of those needed changes, reallocations, adjustments. Because once March starts, we need to do the process like we've been doing it. I mean, we just do. But we've got to somehow add. So maybe that's what we should.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. But we are making some strides, though, that we're looking at not dipping as much into reserves and reallocating that interest. The way I understand last year, I believe close to $1 million was taken out of general reserve to balance the budget. And I don't see us doing that this year. I think that's an important step.
is that true?
I would like to,
It was
It was
611,000.
Okay, sorry,
611.
611,000.
We started off high, but we got it
Okay,
to
went out of general reserve to balance the budget.
correct.
I would like to get the proposal, the first step proposal in front of you in case you would like to take that first step this year. I think that's reasonable.
To start with the fixing the interest issue, okay?
Yeah, Councilman Bates.
Well, yeah, Mayor, I would just say, we're here now. Like, we can start having these conversations and start talking about how do we want to reallocate things? How do we want to adjust? I just see no reason to wait till next year. I don't think it takes that much time to plan for these changes. One simple thing, how many citywide vacant positions do we have? And how much is budgeted into the budget that are vacant positions?
36, 3.8 million.
There you go.
Why does that not solve our problem to some extent, like just?
Because we
out of
plan
the
on
chute?
hiring them.
Yeah, and so my approach would be, let's go through 36 positions and determine, of those 36, do we need all 36 budgeted to be hired?
So
And
that-
I think that is a prudent thing to look at. Just remember, 31 divided by 600 or 800 employees, we don't have a huge vacancy rate at the city. I just add that, like,
Yeah.
30-something sounds like a lot, but we have
So-
several hundred employees.
So I'm looking at the jobs that are posted now, and we can't do without a police chief. we need a controller,
The fire chief. you
or
mean.
fire chief, sorry, hey, chief, you're good?
Yeah, forgot to tell you, Chief Shy, we posted your job yesterday.
Sorry about that. We need police, we need senior operators. There's things that we need within here. And I fear also that as we have that conversation, we start to teeter onto more administrative role than we are in our legislative role.
I agree, but you can manage that by saying, having administration review them, and also that salary savings.
I think it's obvious to everybody that we can't just assume 36 people won't get hired this year, but there's got to be some industry standard, a percentage of what we might expect to have vacant based on our historical vacancy rates, and then that number could be extrapolated to, okay, if we have $3.5 million that's not going out the door in salaries, we could assume that probably, I don't know, 10% of that, 3% of that is going to be
The normal
unspent
vacancy
this year.
rate.
And that would, then we could say, okay, we want to use $100,000 of that for the comp study, right? I mean, that seems to me to be like an easy,
That's what
that-
happens.
okay. But
When
is
you,
it-
when
is-
you, when you decide to do the comp study
Yeah.
and you fund it out of reserves, that is exactly what happened over the years.
Okay,
That's exactly what happened.
so just because maybe I'm not understanding until just now, that we can pass a flat budget, you could just do that, I mean, for lack of a better word, today, right? We could just do that and pass the flat budget and then amend the budget. Once we
Yeah.
look and say, okay, yeah, you're right, we have 10% salary savings projected for this year. We're gonna amend the budget in a council meeting for $100,000 of that to be spent on a comp study. We're gonna give, and then there's actually more than that, so we could buy the mower and we could
Right?
do all those things. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that it's clear. So if we look at those kinds of things on a quarterly basis, if it's built into the budget this year, you wouldn't need to amend the budget. We would just approve the expense. The only time you need to amend the budget is if you're using something outside of the current year's.
Okay.
Right. So I just don't want you to think, Councilman Swanson, that you wouldn't necessarily need to amend the budget to do a comp study. That's
Okay.
not what's happening there, but
So would those salary savings all fall to the general fund, or would the salary savings fall specifically to the department,
it would be in the fund.
in the
That is-
department fund? No.
Well,
Yep.
there's only a fund balance in a fund. Lots of funds are single departments. But the general fund and Fund 4 are the ones that have more departments than just one. So it
Okay.
depends, right? So in the general fund, if a department underspends, it falls to the general fund. In the general, and I only worry about reporting to the state by fund. So if
Right.
one department overspent and one department underspent in the general fund, that wouldn't be considered an issue or out of balance. But any other fund
Right.
is single department. It would drop to their fund balance.
Okay, how many, I get that now. What we're looking at on the screen are all the different funds, but there are multiple departments that are funded out of the general fund.
That's right.
Yes, okay.
And
So in the general fund, how many departments are there approximately? You don't need to give me an exact, but
Is that like 8?
I don't know.
More than that.
I think it's like,
17.
I was way
17.
off.
So if there's salary savings, and just give me an example of 2 departments in that general fund,
Police and fire.
police and fire. So
They're the biggies.
they're the big ones, okay.
They're half and, they're probably 75% of the general
All right.
fund together.
So there's an unfilled position in police. That salary savings leaves the police ledger line and goes to an unspent line somewhere?
It
or stays in
depends.
the-
I'm
oh,
sorry,
boy.
but I have to,
The police chief can come to the mayor and ask it to go into their Fund 78, which stays in their department. Or if that doesn't happen, then it goes into the general fund.
That is correct. So we'll pick on Roger. He's got big shoulders. He's got 800K in Fund 78. If he hadn't requested that to be saved or put away in Fund 78, that 800K wouldn't go away. It would sit in the fund balance of 001,
Okay,
right? So that's the only fund that happens in,
Fund 78. Or
the
lines-
general fund,
The general fund.
right? No, you're good.
Okay.
This is great because you,
I want to know
You're
how to
good.
access the salary savings, and that's what I'm after here. And it may, and I don't know how comfortable the directors are with using their salary savings for somebody else's project.
yeah,
If we get into the same argument about interest.
right. It's
That's an issue
Yeah,
for sure.
that's
It's an issue for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But otherwise, then that puts us in a bind because we can't use that money in a way that, well,
What
yeah,
our priorities
what our priorities are. I mean, it's, we don't, then it's all about what the departments want to do with their money, which I think probably 90% of it should be, but we have goals and the voters have goals as
Sure.
well, so.
And don't use the word can't. I think that it's very good of you to be cognizant of the politics of that and try to support your department heads. But it's not a can't. You've been elected to do this. And yeah, it can be hard. And that's, yeah, right? So it's not a can't, but I'm glad that you are not just, I'm glad that you're worried about how they want and what they want to do. That's a good thing. But it's not a can.
Okay.
You can. And you might put someone's head, you might start a department head on fire.
Sorry.
Welcome to politics.
You got the pro tem fire chief right there.
Okay. Well, are we at the point now, I think we've got some direction with what we want to do with that interest revenue. I'm hearing the comp study is important. I'm hearing the Parks and Rec extra position for trails and forestry is important.
So we want to schedule a meeting if we can. And we probably need to get on that. So I'll work with Connie on that. What I'm bringing to that meeting, I don't think this is something that goes away. I think this is a fine proposal. I really do. I think it's a solid proposal. But we'll bring a proposal that shows an allocation, a first step, an allocation of the highway, streets, and roads portion of interest. The mayor and I will need to get together once we know the difference there and see if we can come up with a plan
Try
for
to,
the general fund, what that does to the general fund.
and try to balance it again.
Now, the only other thing that we've talked about are this wish list. Are there items on that wish list that you want me to schedule? Or are we gonna just let the department heads manage that and get in front of you as they come up if they need to?
I have a
They might
question.
not need to, but they might.
How close are we on the radio body cam upgrade for police? Between what it costs and what's in Fund 78 already?
I think it's about half, if I misspeak. Oh, is he gone?
He's
Oh,
here.
he's here.
Yeah.
He's got a good plan.
can
No,
leave.
please,
I
sit
mean-
down.
Chief Shy, Pocatello Police, we have $838,000. We recently met with Motorola, and what we're looking at doing is redoing our body cams, radios, and dash cams all in one. So it's one ecosystem, so that we don't have Panasonic dash cameras and Motorola body cameras. And 5 years of service, it's about $1.7 million to do that. And that's however, if we can get those by the end of the year, Motorola is offering a discount of $750 off each radio. So it's beneficial for us to get us done sooner rather than later. We're looking at several grants. I've sent several grants over to Christine to look at that Motorola and the federal government have just put out like last week. So I sent those over to her for review. What we're hoping for is to find a grant out there. There was a Bonneville County grant that recently was issued about a year and a half ago for $850,000 for this very thing. So we have about half in there of what we need.
But there's a chance with that grant, if it's successful, we'll be where we need to
Correct.
be.
Yes.
If that grant is successful, what's the timing on that? Would you be able to get the grant in time to fund the end of the year
Yes.
deadline from Motorola?
Yes, that's the plan would be to do that if we can get it within the time frame. It's just about timing, and you know, you go for a grant and you're competing against other agencies. I often say hope is not a plan, so I want to plan for if we don't get the grant, what do we do?
So Chief, that would deplete your entire reserve balance, correct?
Correct. That would deplete Fund 78. However, what I would come to council with the next ask would be to sell our old radios and our old body cameras and dash cameras to a company that refurbishes them and then replenish some money from that and put that back into Fund 78 for another project.
Do you have a number on that?
I don't, because I don't, the market fluctuates, so I haven't even explored what that would look like. We have a couple companies that do refurbish those things, so I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
I think, I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but so this goes forward. He says end of year December. If we need to access that 880, that is when we would open the budget and access that. And it would be in front of you to approve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this feels like something that doesn't necessarily need to be budgeted for.
Right.
Because we're waiting to see if we can get this grant. We would just do a budget amendment if that comes through.
But we like to keep those things in front of you,
Right.
so you know their needs. You bet.
And then we come to a working session, talk about it in the working session and where we're at, and then move forward from there.
So that discount you were talking about, if you buy it at the end of the year, how much does that trim from that 1.7?
So it's we would need 110 radios. It's $750 a piece. So yeah.
750,000.
What was that?
What did you say?
A $750 discount,
Times how many?
110,
8250.
$82,500.
Okay, I was way off.
Yeah, added a zero.
Okay,
I do that
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, I just wishful thinking, I guess.
It's a savings, you know, and Motorola, always when you talk to them, if you can bundle more, the bigger discount they can get. And they're really pushing this. We got 5 radios coming to finally T&E. It's taken a while to get them here. We started on this project last year, and it's taken till now to get the 5 radios en route and body cameras to T&E to test and evaluate.
Okay.
One of the cheapest asks, not cheap, less expensive asks was a pool cover. So maybe we throw that in there.
Okay.
What? Sure. Oh,
That has nothing to do with you, Chief.
okay, I was confused. That's okay. I'm often confused.
We're building you a pool out back.
It's inexpensive.
Cool.
Mayor, just, I'll just, on the wish list, the only other 2 things that really stand out to me, outside of everything with parks, a lot of my idea of the salary savings with ongoing salary savings is, I think we could start dedicating a lot of that salary savings throughout the year towards, as we've seen, a lot of deferred maintenance and needs in the Parks Department. So I'm not discounting the parks needs, but the other 2 would be, I would be really interested in hearing and having more discussion with GIS about what more we could provide them with that would benefit all departments. I really do feel like GIS is kind of a force multiplier of, if we can put more budget into GIS, it may help with savings in other departments in terms of time and staff and money. And then the market rate study with fleet. So those would be kind of the two for me.
Okay, got it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I sort of like the idea of leaving the budget as sort of proposed without adding a lot of things to it. But if we're going to talk about adding some things, something I think would be important would be some money for beautification, particularly for the center Clark Street interchange. I mean, it just looks bad. It's a bad reflection on our community.
Thank you for saying that.
And
I
it's been
have
on the top of the
yeah,
council's goals and priority for years, and we haven't done anything on it.
Yeah,
So I think if we're going to start adding things, we need to add that.
Agreed.
yeah, I would agree too. Okay. Any other thoughts before we adjourn? If not, it sounds like we will reconvene in a couple of weeks to go over this more. Any kind of ending thoughts before we adjourn?
Maybe just remind you, I have, and this might be a small thing, but it does affect those who have been in front of you. And so I want to keep it in your mind. This budget, the community requests remain the same as last year's budget. So they were in front of you asking for 199 and we budgeted 138. I know that's not a lot of money or not maybe one of the main things we talk about, but those people came and talked to you, so I wanted you to be aware of how we had budgeted that. And I've told you that before, just please remember.
Okay.
So we'll have to go through what we're gonna give and not give, because that's a huge deficit.
You know, in March, maybe I do have a good closing remark. Thank you. In March, we were meeting in the Paradise Room, and one of you, and I don't know who it was, said, we need to look at the things we want to pay for. But not only do we need to do that, we need to look at the things we don't want to pay for. And I have written that on top of my legal pad every single time I change my page, because I think it's poignant. I think it's hard. It is hard. But it is something we need to together as a team. But you guys are the final stamp of approval, have to do. So we'll get those proposals to you and we'll get a meeting scheduled and then have some more discussion.
Yeah, the proposals for the community nonprofits.
No,
Or just
I'm talking about
overall.
another budget proposal that would shift a little bit of the burden of where we're at from streets to the general fund
Okay.
by adjusting interest.
Mayor, can I say something?
Yes.
But we'll keep this one as well, so you can compare. Sorry, go ahead.
So I do remember a couple times when streets did take kind of a hit, and I appreciate the comment that Tom had made about being team players, and I recognize that the staff as a whole, everybody is for the most part team players, and I appreciate the hard work that you guys do, and I also applaud you and appreciate your patience in this. And looking at the fact that we have a lot of hard cuts to possibly make and hard decisions ahead of us, I would just please pray and ask for your patience and for your team effort. And please don't take it offensive or as it's a personal attack. If something is to be cut or something is discussed about being cut, it's not that. It's really looking at the health of the city, your departments, and everything that we're managing as a whole. So thank you guys for just being awesome.
Okay, any other parting thoughts, comments? Okay, thank you. With that, we are adjourned.